Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA De-10 Nano project. And today we're doing the second of two PlayStation 1 core preview videos because a lot has happened since the last time I previewed this, and we now have sound in the core, and we have sound in the core with only 128 megabyte RAM module. I barely even had a chance to get my RAM in and test it without the analog I/O board on top before the maker of the core transitioned it to using one module, so this is completely not essential for right now, which means you too can preview this core. But getting right into it, the improvements are spectacular because we now have SPU sound in the PlayStation 1 core. Now let me differentiate how sound works on PlayStation 1. There's internal sound hardware that uses samples and other bits of hardware that are going to produce sound. That is what we're getting here. Red Book Audio, which also has a couple different acronyms, but I call it Red Book, which is basically the industry standard, is not yet functioning. So any video game on the PlayStation 1 that had the soundtrack spooling from the discs, the ones you can put into a CD player and listen to the soundtrack, you're not getting music on those quite yet, but it is definitely in the works. And I know the SPU, getting that to run on one RAM stick, was one of the goals of the maker of this core, and it is functioning. And we are playing Crash Bandicoot 2, and I have full in-game sound effects and full in-game music, and honestly playing this on MiSTer doesn't feel any different than playing it on my PlayStation 1 or my PSX DVR unit, because I have all three Crash Bandicoot games on physical discs on PlayStation 1. And honestly, if you didn't tell me that I was playing a MiSTer, if you just handed me a controller, I don't know that I would currently be able to tell the difference. Now there's a little garbage outside of the screen area and I have scale to get rid of that, but this game is functioning perfectly. But take a listen, it's so good. It's amazing how quick the PlayStation 1 core has progressed to the point where it's barely loading anything, to loading games with no audio whatsoever, to now having SPU audio, and it sounds spectacular. This sounds as good as my PlayStation 1 or PSX. I have absolutely no issues with the sound whatsoever. Now you will see here in Symphony of the Night, the only thing you're hearing is some sound effects, because this game mostly used audio spooling off the CD disc itself to play that spectacular soundtrack. So depending on how the game did the music, you're either going to get the full experience or a lesser experience, because you can hear in the background here, all of the sound effects are functioning perfectly fine, but we don't have the musical track associated with this fight, nor, even though I cut it out when Dracula talked, we did not have his speech samples. But of course you get full sound effects, and the CD audio is coming. It might be next week, it might be next month. The speed at which this is getting iterated on, it might already be out by the time this video comes out, because it's going to be about 12 days from the recording time. So hey, you may already have CD audio, we just don't know yet, but the sound effects are great, and some of the music in Symphony of the Night is generated by internal hardware versus spooled off the disc. And because this is an audio video, I want to talk a little bit more and let you listen to it. So listen to the death cut scene, and I'll be back in 30 seconds.
What?
Not only does that sound awesome, it's also really fun from a hardware perspective, because I always assumed the slight music in the background when Death came out was spooling off the CD as Red Book Audio, but the fact that it's playing on the core as we speak now, that means it's being processed by the SPU, so it's really fun to see the differences in the internal hardware sound rendering versus what was spooling in off disk. And something like Tomba here basically uses the SPU for all of the audio outside of FMV cutscenes, so you're 100% going to be able to play this and get max maximum enjoyment out of it. I don't know, maybe it freezes somewhere, I haven't finished it, but this feels like playing a PlayStation 1, and this core is not even done, and that's the highest compliment I can give it. It just feels like PlayStation 1 hardware. Now moving on to a guilty pleasure game, I love Gex. I loved it as a kid, I love it as an adult. Some people love it, some people hate it. But I always assumed that Gex's one-liners, however old they may get after you listen to them over and over again, were spooled in from the CD, but apparently they are synthesized speech off the sound hardware on the MiSTer, and it's just so much fun to see how these games were not only made, but how they function internally. But I will say, playing Gex on the MiSTer core feels absolutely no different than playing Gex on my PlayStation 1 or my PSX DVR. This looks, sounds, and plays and controls exactly how you would expect, and I find absolutely no lag in the controls whatsoever. I would say you could probably play Gex from start to finish. Now this is not a core setup guide. If you want to experience this, maybe join the Discord, maybe you learn how to do it. I do set up guides when I feel like 99% of the people that watch the video would have the technical understanding to pull it off. It's not much harder than getting any other core setup, but when this core is at the maturity stage where I feel like I can teach people how to use it, I will 100% do so. But go ahead and listen to Gex for like 35 seconds because again, the audio quality coming out of this core is spectacular. I love it, and I will be right back.
Nap time!
I have played Gex Enter the Gecko so many times in my life that I have the soundtrack and sound effects basically burned into my brain, and I will tell you right now, without a direct hardware comparison against PlayStation 1, there are no differences. This just sounds like Gex is supposed to sound. The one-liners sound exactly how they did in the original disc. This game looks, sounds, and plays like its original hardware, and this core is not even done, and that means that we're in for even better things moving forward. But I want to take a look at one last game just to see how the hardware is running, something a little bit later on in the console's library, and that is Crash Team Racing. If you've somehow never played this game, you've only played Mario Kart, definitely check it out because it is as much fun as Mario Kart is, and if you love Crash Bandicoot like I do, having the universe and the characters in the game is spectacular. This is running at full speed. There is no way that this is running any slower than original hardware. I did in the background just test it out, and it feels the exact same. And I can't believe I'm saying that because it was only like a month and a half, 2 months ago, maybe in the end of November, that this core was even starting to boot games. The fact that it went from barely running anything to running the large majority of PlayStation 1 titles with at least the SPU sound is nothing short of miraculous in my opinion. This is impressive work. Clearly PlayStation 1 is 100% possible on the MiSTer, and it's probably going to be relatively soonish where we can just say MiSTer is an excellent replacement for original PlayStation 1 hardware, and that is absolutely amazing. That just leaves Saturn, because Nintendo 64, unfortunately, people keep saying that that's not possible due to the amount of logic onto the FPGA chip on the De-10 Nano board, but we're getting close to having one of the three of that generation's consoles running on MiSTer. And because the PlayStation 1 hardware is so delicate and the lasers love to die, this is going to probably be one of the best cores for most people to check out because, knock on wood, my Sega Saturn still boots discs and the lasers on those seem to function much better than anything else. But yeah, that's the second preview for the PlayStation 1 core on MiSTer. It is shaping up to be an absolutely spectacular thing. Short of that, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Love chatting with you guys. Do me a huge favor, hit like and subscribe and that notification bell. And if you feel so inclined and want to support my channel, what we do here, there's a Patreon link in the description below as well. But yeah, we're getting really close to having a full fat core for the PlayStation 1 on MiSTer, and I absolutely cannot wait. I'll be back next week with more MiSTer videos, but I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.